The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about Boy Meets World, just
Sure.
for the fans, and also I can talk later seasons because Pod Meets World can't do that yet. So, but what's up, besties? Welcome back to another episode of Childlike with Mike Valdes. Guess what, chicken butt? I'm still the second part of that title. I hope you had a great week this week. If you want to eat cereal along with us, please do. This cereal that we have on this episode is our friends over at Off Limits. Off Limits Flex is what we have. I believe that's available at Target or on offlimits.co. However, you don't have to have that cereal if you don't want to. In fact, my guest has a bowl of cereal on this podcast of the Cinnamon Toast Crunch variety. So if you want to have your favorite cinnamon cereal along with this podcast as you listen or as you watch, please do. This week's guest is the return of Mark Blutman. Mark Blutman is the writer of Boy and Girl Meets World. He's also the writer of Ghostwriter on Apple TV+. I mean, I absolutely adore this guy. He's such a funny guy, such a kind guy. And if you had told me when I was a kid as a Boy Meets World fan that I'm going to be personal friends with one of the writers of this show, I would have not believed it. It is just an amazing thing that I can consider Mark a friend, and it's such an honor to be considered one of his friends. I really think that you guys are going to love this episode. We have a lot of Boy Meets World that we talk about. We have some other things that we talk about as he was doing stand-up as a wrestler. Another thing that we talk about that is very important, if you aren't aware, the WGA is on strike right now, and we get into that on this episode. We give some information, and hopefully with all the information that he provides, you as a listener are able to stand with the writers, because I personally stand with the writers here on this situation. Other than that, this is such a fun episode. I really think that you guys are going to love it. So please strap in, get a bowl of your favorite cinnamon cereal of any variety that you like, and enjoy my episode and my conversation with Mark Blutman.
You know what? Real quick, before you start, I love your work and this and that. Dude,
Sure.
I am such a fan of you.
Really?
Which is why I, say, hey, I want to come on again. I know we did it a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't really remember because, quite frankly, as much as I like you, I forget it the minute it's over.
Sure.
No, I'm kidding.
It's okay.
I'm a fan of yours because you're funny.
Mm.
But more than that, in a business that really thrives and grows and expands and engulfs other people based on toxicity, there is so much of it.
Agreed.
You are such a good, pure human, and I watch how kind you are to everybody you engage with, and that makes me a fan because I wake up in the day and it's, I feel like it's Frogger. I have to avoid all these traps of toxic people and stuff. And so you've always impressed me as somebody that does not compromise who they are. You've got that little 8-year-old boy still inside you.
Yeah.
And you're forever a child.
That's me.
And you're very talented. So that makes you easily probably 7,045th on my list of top people. So there's room, Mike, for you.
There is room for improvement. I'm very good at, when you give me a little bit of leeway to improve, I'm very good at it. So thank you for saying that.
Well, by the end of the year, we'll get you up to 6,000 or something.
Yeah. By the way, things that I never thought I would ever hear from the writer of my favorite show for $5,000, Alex, please. That is such a compliment. Oh my goodness. I appreciate that. And yeah, dude, I mean, I don't know what else to say because that's so kind.
All right. Well, I'll see you later. I'm going to leave. Recording. That was it. It's just a good soundbite for you.
Yeah, I was just gonna say thanks for the soundbite. The check's in the mail, and that's about it. But yeah, man. No, I'm so happy to have you back. But before we start talking, because of course, like people are gonna want me to talk about Boy Meets World and Girl and stuff like that, which is totally fine too. I'm just as much of a nerd about that show as they are. But one thing I will say, and I hold myself very much, in prideful in this. I had Mark Blutman before Pod Meets World. I had Mark Blutman before Allison Rosen is Your Friend. I had Mark Blutman before all of these shows. So you want to hear those stories for the first time? Listen to Childlike at Best.
That's so funny. It's funny too, because when I it seems, especially since the strike started,
yes,
I'm saying yes to just about every ask, because I want the chance to talk about the strike. It's that important to me.
Of course.
And if I reach one new person, just one new person who happens to be listening, that now has an understanding of how threatened the occupation of writer is in our future, if I can make one person understand that, and they write a letter to Zaslav at WBD, or they cancel their Netflix or their Disney Plus, then it's worth it to me, because we truly are, in a on the precipice of a crisis. But so I do all these podcasts, and then when I promote them, I found myself a couple of weeks ago, Mike, I actually said, like in my tweet, I'm like, if you're not sick of my raspy voice telling some of the same stories, because I don't remember what I've told I have tons of stories. Of course, I've been doing this. I've been in the business for 40 years.
Right.
I started as a little, 4-year-old child actor. No, that's not true. That would put me in my 40s. I'm almost 63. But I'm like, are you people tired of my and people, we love your raspy voice. We love you,
we love it. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's
so
great.
Yes, you had me on before Allison Rosen is Your Friend, before Pod Meets World.
Yeah. Most importantly, before Pod Meets World, because that they have a humongous listenership, which is amazing. I love those guys, and I love literally everything that's happening in like if you're my age, this is like the best time to be a podcast fan, because like a lot of these nostalgia rewatch shows with people that were actually on the show that could tell you about what the show is about and all this stuff. It's like a dream.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. BTS. For those of you at home who don't know, old Blutman knows acronyms behind the scenes.
Yeah. Before it was a K-pop band, it meant behind the scenes.
Exactly. But what's interesting to what you're saying, Mike, these watch-alongs are very popular, as you said. Now, here's why. And these streamers and networks are so slow to realize what they're missing out on, because it's a tell. The reason these are all doing so well is people are not desperate to go see The Flash.
Right.
People are so done with all that. People in these times, and they're dark times to a degree, they want comfort. And that's why these nostalgia. So that's why, to me, it's like, dude, if I'm running one of these, I'm like going heavy back into multicam sitcoms.
Yeah.
Because everything is cyclical.
Yeah, and what's so nuts too is like I very much am in the Will Friedle camp of I think that the 4-camera sitcom is like the perfect comedy show. And so many networks are like, no, everything needs to be like The Office because that was popular, and all this stuff. And look, single cam is fine. There's nothing wrong with single cam comedies.
Wrong with it.
They're all great. But man, there is just something about like the beauty of like the theater of getting to watch a 4-camera sitcom that's so cool.
That's what it is. It's a proscenium. I mean, the audience is sitting there. They're looking at 3-dimensional sets without a fourth wall.
Yeah.
And the energy in those studios, I mean, the actors will tell you there's nothing like hitting a line or having an emotional moment and having those 300 people right there on the spot react as one loudly with laughter or, feeling the pain of that a character is feeling. And then, at the end of the night, when we used to do those, cast calls, curtain calls, even on Girl Meets World, the audience would go nuts. One last chance to applaud and say goodbye and thank you for this episode that you just did for us. The energy. I mean, Mike, we used to have audiences line up at 3 a.m. and bring tents. Us, that's a TV crazy. Show. They would line up and be intense and drive from all over the place to be one of those 350 people at a taping. I don't know what these guys are thinking, but again, as you said, these nostalgic, look backs and watch along at shows from the 90s, 80s, 2000s. People are desperate for comfort food.
Yeah.
And when I say comfort food, it comes in all shapes, not just food on a plate,
of course,
or cheesesteak on a stick or whatever. It comes in the form of music.
Yeah.
It comes in the form of television. It comes in the form of anything that feels like it's wrapping their arms around you and telling you it's okay.
Yeah, and I it's funny you kind of sparked this idea in my brain. I did someone's podcast recently where it was about
Allison Rosen.
No, I wish. I love Allison, but
she's great.
But
she's
great. She's great. I've been a fan of hers for years, but yeah. I was doing this show, and this show is about like who your crush is, and so sometimes it could be a person, it could be a fictional character, or whatever. And I was like, you know what? I think I have a crush on nostalgia. And the host was like, that's very different and strange and weird. And why? And I was like, well, the reason why is because nostalgia is a thing that you fall in love with the second that you have it. And then and then as you grow older, you see it as this perfect thing. And you never unsee the perfection of it. It's kind of like an actual crush where like, I always, if I could tell my younger self something about like relationships or crushes, it's like, don't ever talk to that girl that you think is perfect because she'll stop being perfect the moment you start talking to her. You know what I mean? And that's kind of, and that's nothing against women. That's literally just anybody you have a crush on at all.
Any relationship at all. Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you literally believe they're perfect until that day where they're loading their car and or U-Haul with half the stuff. And you're realizing, wait a minute, oh my gosh, that's my box of comic books. How can she take that? She doesn't know how much they're worth. Oh my gosh, she does. She must. And at that point, the gloves are off. But no, I hear you. I'll always, I look back on shows like Happy Days.
Yeah.
That was my comfort show. That
I was going to ask you what your comfort shows were. Yeah.
I mean, it was Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley. As I got a little older, I think it was late 80s. I'm terrible with numbers, but I loved watching WKRP in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
But then on, channel 33 or whatever, with the antenna on the roof and all that, Mary Tyler Moore's show, man.
Man, she was the best, right?
Yeah.
Like,
did you see the documentary?
I have not seen it yet, but I want to.
You should. Yeah. There were definitely some tears.
Yeah.
It's funny. I was at breakfast with a good friend of mine who's in the business, and I said, "You got to see the Mary Tyler Moore documentary." And he went, "Yeah, no, I will." I go, I cried like a lot, and he said to me, he goes, "What made you cry?" And I just went, well, when she died, let's start there.
Yeah, there's quite a bit actually.
But
there's that, and like the diabetes diagnosis. There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's a lot. I mean, and that's me not having seen the documentary. And there's a lot that I know, you know, so.
Spoiler, she married her doctor.
Yeah. That's, I mean, honestly, if he's going to help your diabetes diagnosis, marry up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
Oh, I love that for a t-shirt. Marry up, Mary.
Yeah.
Marry up, Mary.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't want this to go unnoticed. You are the first guest that has ever actually eaten cereal on the podcast. I'm so happy about that.
First of all, I'm hungry.
Sure.
So there's that.
Yeah.
Second of all, I know it's a big part of your lifestyle and possible addiction.
Sure.
And and your podcast. And so I thought, but it's funny because for me, and I did this obviously for this and you, I'm not a big cereal guy anymore.
I know, yeah.
But eating this right now, really right up close to the section on nostalgia, this brings me back to the kitchen table.
That's the whole point, man. That's literally the whole point.
Literally. So it brings me back to the kitchen table Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
But it brings me back to the couch on Saturday mornings.
Of course.
Where there was no clock on me. I didn't have to be anywhere and I was just watching cartoons. So probably Saturday I would have 6 bowls of cereal.
Yeah.
Because you're just sitting there. And actually, I wasn't even on the couch. I remember it so vividly. I was on the floor back against the couch.
Okay.
And I would watch wrestling. Sure. And I would watch, Inch High Private Eye. There was the other one, Dick Dastardly and Muttley. And
Dick Dastardly, Wacky Races.
Yeah. And all these, vintage cartoons, but a lot of wrestling. And those who know me know how much I loved wrestling as a kid.
Yeah.
But the nostalgia, cereal to us adults is nostalgic.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of wrestling and cereal, did you ever have Mr. T cereal by any chance?
No.
I heard that it was.
I pity the fool that did.
I pity the fool that did. Yeah, I actually, I think I talked to Drew McWeeny about this. He was talking about how he was like, it was so bad. It was like the worst cereal ever. But it was just like, back then you just wanted to have the cereal that was based on the thing that you liked. That was something
where I guarantee you, on a Wednesday, somebody in a boardroom said, "Hey, how about Mr. T cereal?" And they went, "Okay." And it was probably on the shelves by the following Monday.
Right.
There was probably not a lot of time put into ingredients. It's like, what do we have lying around from Fruity Pebbles that didn't make it inside Fruity Pebbles? Let's put it in this.
You're so right. In fact, I don't know who made this, but there was a cereal. And I looked back at like an 80s commercial and I was like, who would ever find this appetizing? And the whole idea was that there was a cereal factory and there was a cartoon character who would clean up the floor, right? From all like the residue. And the residue would then go into a box and that was the cereal.
There you go. Exactly what I'm saying.
And so it's like,
that's it.
Who would eat that? And like the whole point was like, you might get like a piece of Alphabets. You might get a Raisin Bran flake. Right. You may
get a shoelace.
Yeah, you might get a shoelace. You might get a bunch of stuff. Like,
hey, look, a prize. Yeah, I don't think it's a prize. It's definitely a surprise.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's a prize.
Not a prize. Not a prize at all. But yeah, man, you're absolutely right. And like, to keep on this track of cereal for a second, since we're already talking about it, I have recently, I don't know if it's popular in LA, but I know that there's a company, they're not a sponsor, but I love this company. They're called Kith. They are, they started in New York and now they have a storefront called Kith Treats that's out in the Miami Arts District. Okay. And the whole idea is that you go in as an adult and it's like a luxury like cereal bar basically. And so they have these like mixes of cereal, and they're based on celebrities, so like you can ask for like the Action Bronson, and like that is like Fruity Pebbles with like a Kit Kat bar in it, and like all these different kinds of things, and it's mixed with ice cream, or like 17 variations of milk, or whatever. Like it's literally like a dream for a cereal person. So my question to you was going to be, if there were to be a Mark Blutman cereal or a Mark Blutman recipe, what would that be?
That's easy. It would, whatever the base was,
Mm-hmm.
it would be surrounded by peanut butter.
Sure, yeah.
I love peanut butter.
Hell yeah.
And so does one of my sons. Unfortunately, his brother, my other son, Luke, is highly allergic to peanuts. Yeah. So we can't keep any peanut butter when we're living together in the house. But my cereal, I think it would be a traditional flake.
Mm-hmm.
Like no, I'm going to pivot.
Okay.
Give me the peanut butter stays.
Okay. I love that base, by the way.
Give me something like this, a square, like the Cinnamon Crunch. Give me like a square.
Cinnamon Crunch. Uh-huh.
Put peanut butter, okay, and grape jelly, so a little grapefruit, and then another one on top.
Yeah.
And seal it. So that's my cereal. It's like a toast.
Yeah.
With peanut butter and jam inside.
Love what you're doing. I love that.
And we call it peanut butter Blutmans.
Peanut butter Blutmans.
PB&J Blutmans, something like that.
Yeah.
We'll work on the name.
I mean, in all reality,
conceptually, it's a hit.
Yeah, no, I mean, conceptually, we're millionaires, but that's kind of the thing that I love about Kith, is that they don't really have interesting names. Like, it's just like you just pick a famous person on the wall and then you see what you get, Yeah. So the cool thing is we can just be like the Mark Blutman. Like, that's literally.
Let's do it. But peanut butter and Blutman. Mike, here's the deal. If the strike goes too long and I need a source of income, then I'll hit you up and we'll figure out how to get that cereal on the shelves.
Oh, we will. And the good news is this actually moves on to my next bit here. Last time you were on the show, and most of the time on the show, I usually always have a bit where I say that I have a sponsor and they didn't come through, and all this stuff. I am happy to say that this episode is sponsored by a cereal company. Yeah, man, I'm super stoked on it. I spoke with a brand called Off Limits, who is an amazing cereal company. And they make some really awesome, kind of like, it's basically for adults, like with the thought process, because it's like lower sugar, but it's also like, let's put flavors that adults actually like. So for example, there's a coffee flavored cereal, there's peanut butter flavored cereal. They just came out with
do they have like Whiskey-O's?
Not yet, but that is a great idea. They have whiskey. They don't have Whiskey-O's yet. But from what I have so far, they have coffee. They have pancakes and marshmallows, which is pretty awesome. They have pandan, which is pretty great. I'm looking at my cereal shelf. That's why I'm like looking off, and strawberry flavored.
That's great.
Now, the cool thing about them is that they have characters on their boxes that don't exist. They kind of like made their own characters for each box, and they don't have voices yet. So I thought what would be really fun is to do that with one of these. And now I chose this one for you. This is Off Limits Flex cereal. Okay. Which is they're kind of cinnamon toast crunch flavored kind of deal. Now, this guy looks like a wrestler, just like Mark Blutman loves. You know what I mean? I love that so much. So Looking at the box here, it's like I said, it's a vegan gluten-free cereal. There's a little adult coloring page back here, which is really fun.
It's great.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff. So
should I cut a spot as Flex?
I absolutely love how your brain is exactly where my brain went.
Right.
I want you to cut a promo for Flex. That is exactly what I want.
You you hold Flex up.
I will. And
I will do it.
And I've got some music ready. So here we go. All right. Here's Flex.
My name is Flex, and let me tell you something. It's gonna be me and you Saturday morning. Where? In the kitchen. 7 a.m., brother. And we are gonna pour ourselves a bowl of the good stuff. And I'm gonna dig in with my big old spoon. You hear me? And I'm gonna bring it to my mouth and I will devour that cereal. Because there is no cereal in the land as good as my cereal, Flex. So if you're hungry for a big old bowl of the good stuff, it's time. It's time to flex. Oh yeah.
I love it. Flex, 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 flex,
Like
flex,
flex,
flex, flex, flex, flex. Oh my gosh, dude.
I think they're gonna send me a box.
They're at least gonna send you a box. At the very least, they should send you a couple grand. That was incredible.
No, they're gonna want to use that spot, right?
Yeah, dude. I mean, that's the clip already. Like, as you were doing it, I was like, this is the clip. We're going viral. This is the clip. Like,
oh gosh, it's amazing how I just fall back into my wrestling persona.
I love that so much, man. And we talked about it briefly last time when you were on, because for the people that are just tuning in for the first time with Childlike at Best with season 2, Mark used to be a comedian who was an ex-pro wrestler named Crusher Comic. And, I believe there's a 5-minute set on WWE that we can still see.
I've been told.
Have you not seen it? I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. There was a show, Vince McMahon, WWF at the time, before they became WWE. They had a show on USA Network called Tuesday Night Titans.
Mm-hmm.
And they had me come on and they built a nightclub set and I did 5-6 minutes of whatever of chaos. But, it was interesting. It was shortly after. Well, here's the thing. First of all, with Crusher Comic, it's the power of suggestion and suspending disbelief in that people believe that I really was an ex-wrestler.
Yeah.
Turned comedian.
Right.
And it's funny now because
Mm-hmm.
so many wrestlers actually do stand up. Mick Foley does a one-man show. Dolph Ziggler and his brother Ryan Nemeth. They go up at the Improv in LA and they're in Chicago, I think, this weekend. So there is a natural transition for wrestlers to find their way into comedy, just because the good ones have to be good at promo and they have to be good on the mic and be able to tell a convincing story.
Of course.
But back then I was the only one doing this and people were just, all of a sudden I end up on the cover. Crusher Comic is on the cover of Wrestling World magazine.
That's awesome.
With the Road Warriors. And so people are sitting there at home and they're wrestling fans are looking at the magazine and go, wait, Crusher Comic, he's here at the Comedy Corner tonight in Colorado Springs. Let's go.
Yeah.
So I was one of the only acts that had never been on Carson or Letterman that was selling out. I was selling out every comedy club, man. And the fun of it, for those of you who don't know, and I'll send you a picture, Mike, so you can post the picture too with this, is that I'm wearing a mask, so you don't know who I am. And I've got long Ric Flair style robes to the floor with sparkles. And I wear wrestling tights and wrestling boots and then a tuxedo shirt with a bow tie and cummerbund. And I would do the show and headlining these clubs doing an hour. And then I go into the green room. I get undressed. I put on a pair of jeans and a hoodie and I go sit at the bar and there's a bunch of people who just saw the show hanging out, and I'll just turn to somebody and go, man, I never get tired of that guy. He is so good. Did you love him? Because I loved him. I come and see him all the time. And they're like, oh my gosh, he's the best. And I go, yeah. And I'm having a conversation with people and like, just listen to my voice. That should tip you off.
Yeah.
But they never got it because, you know, it's such a different persona, Mark Blutman compared to the Crusher comic.
Yeah.
And I used to have such a blast. It truly was like being a superhero.
Yeah.
In that, I had an alter ego and I could walk around, you know, as myself, and then I can be Crusher. And then after the show, if I wanted to still keep the mask on, but put regular clothes on, I could do that too. If I wanted people to know that I was Crusher. So, you know, in fact, there were cities, you know, the big thing back in the day, and I'm sure it still is for you, Mike, when you do gigs and stuff. But, you know, morning radio was the big marketing vehicle for our comedy shows. And, you know, you'd be up till 1 a.m. doing 2 shows, and you got to get up at 6 a.m. and go do the morning show. And it was always, you know, the gimmicks, and they had the bells and the sound effects. And, you know, hey, it's Krusty in the morning. You're listening to
Toilet Flush.
Yeah. And so I would go on, and then one day I walked in and they said, hey, we're running a win a date with Crusher comic contest for our female listeners. And I went, oh, okay. And so it was like the dating game. About 10 women would come on and talk to me as Crusher, and I would ask them questions. And now, if we hit it off and you really enjoyed my company, and a year down the road, I asked for your hand in marriage. And we got married. And we had kids. And we were 10 years into this thing. And you still never saw what I actually looked like. Would you be okay with that? And they'd be, yeah, sure. I think that's part of the gimmick. I mean, to be able to live a lifetime with a man and never see his face, that just sounds so amazing.
Wow.
I choose you. And that night, a limo would pick us up, and I'd go to a fancy steakhouse in
with the mask
clothes
on.
and a mask. And I'm carrying on a serious conversation with this woman, and she's so caught up in it. She's not looking around as 75 eyes are on us. Everybody's staring, you know, who's this guy in a freaking ski mask with a woman? And we're just sitting there, and it's like a normal date. Like, so what's your favorite kind of sushi? Oh, Toro. Yeah, me too. I love the Toro. What about, what's the best concert you ever saw?
Wow.
Blink 182. Yeah, I like them. And we're just having this normal conversation, and I'm in a mask.
That's so funny.
And I would go back, and I'm a very conservative, you know, kid from a, you know, Jewish family in Canada. And, you know, I don't party and don't do anything like that. But I love being off the wall, and I love being outside the box, and I love getting a reaction from people. And I would be in these situations and then just go home or go back to the comedy condo or a hotel and go, I can't believe this is my life right now.
Right. Yeah.
I put a mask on and talk like this.
Yeah.
People love me. I remove the mask and go, hi, my name's Mark. They're like, yeah, okay, get away. Next. We're waiting for that wrestler guy.
This leads to my question about this, because this is so interesting. Like, I mean, and I've heard you tell these stories about like the win a date with Crusher, which would definitely not be a thing anymore. Because of the
God.
PC police and all that stuff, you know, like win a date with Mike Valdes. Like, what am I supposed to do? You know, like I'm supposed to like pretend that I'm not seeing anybody. Like, it's like, that was kind of my question, was like, you're like, well, my character isn't seeing anybody. So like, even if you were seeing somebody, you'd have to be like, well, my character's single. Was that a thing? So that's exactly what it was. Yeah, absolutely.
Now I didn't get married till I was like 36, and I was doing Crusher comic. I started doing Crusher in 1981. And the height of Crusher mania, brother, was probably the mid 80s, you know, when I was at the Comedy Store and all that stuff. And I was single anyway, but it would have been like that. It's like an actor kissing, somebody on set and going home to their spouse and going, honey, it's just what the script says.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was my character. My character was gorgeous. He was a beautiful man. Women adored him.
and this is kind of my next question was like, because obviously you had a huge fan base and even more obviously many women that wanted to go on dates with Crusher, right? So would you have women that would keep calling you and you would still have to like off the clock still have to pretend to be Crusher, or after a while you just be like, hey, it's the wrong number, it's Mark now, or like
I will share this one story.
Sure.
There was a comic I was doing a bunch of one-nighters in New Jersey with named Max Dolcelli.
Okay.
He still works. He does cruise ships and stuff. Very funny guy. And we were doing these one-nighters all over New Jersey. And this is the mid-'80s. And again, different time, different, set of rules. And I did my show. And I came out and I was still in my getup, and I grabbed my robe, was on the floor, and I put it on. And there was a girl that I can tell wanted to meet me.
Yeah.
And because during the show, she was with a couple of friends at the front and smiling at me left and right. And then at the end of the night, she was at the bar and her friends were gone. Mm-hmm. So we started talking, and these were those gigs all over New Jersey where you would drive. So I had a car, and we went out to the car, and I'm still in my mask. I'm still in my outfit and robe, and get in the car, and we're about to make out, literally. I mean, it's about to happen, make out. Again, keep in mind, 1985, 1986.
Yeah.
And I go to pull the mask off.
Right.
And she goes, no.
Yeah, she
I
Spider-Man
want the
you.
Crusher.
She Mary Jane Spider-Man you.
There you go. So, and I just was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know if there was something exciting about it or something absolutely sad about it.
Yeah, that's kind of the crux of it, right? Where it's just like there is something kind of awesome, but at the same time so incredibly sad about it, because it's just like it's like a weird existence, And
then years later, you see Pulp Fiction and the Gimp, and you go, I get it.
Right. Yes.
I'm like taking the mask off. No, keep the mask on, and please put this red ball in your mouth. It was weird that ultimately one of the reasons I pivoted from stand-up comedy to, for me, for writing and eventually producing and writing TV and movies was because of my conservative nature and because of who I really was. I was so the antithesis of Crusher Comic. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to get married, and I just wanted kids. Mm-hmm. And the lifestyle of comedians on the road in the 80s was just not something I was into. Right. And by the way, there were lots of other comics that were, lived a fairly straight edge life. Not everybody was doing, coke in the back of the Comedy Store with, Sam Kinison and Billy Idol, but that was the scene, and it was prevalent. Of course. And so
you can still tell when you go to the Comedy Store that's what it was. Like, I always felt personally, and I don't think I've ever shared this on the podcast, but I've done the Comedy Store a few times, and something about that place just always like skeeved me out. Like, I don't really know what it is.
It's haunted, right? They say it's haunted.
That's what they say, but yeah, like some people are like it's haunted, and some people and I'm just like, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that like all of these walls are littered with cocaine residue, like maybe that's what it is, like I don't know. And I've always been a pretty straight edge guy, like the worst thing I've done to my body is eat cereal and Diet Coke, like so like it's just like I don't know.
But Mike, not just since it was the Comedy Store, remember, it was Ciro's nightclub years before.
Yeah,
where you had, Sammy Davis and Sinatra and all these incredible entertainers. So it was one of the go-to places in the 50s and 60s, long before it opened the doors as a, rebranded itself and opened its doors as a comedy club. So there was craziness going on there before it became a comedy club.
You mentioned Taylor Negron, and you got to work with him on So Little Time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was so freaking funny, man. He was such a funny guy.
And an amazing person.
Yeah.
So pure. It was a challenging show to do, So Little Time. Only because, Mary-Kate and Ashley were 16 years old and they were $1 billion brand.
Yeah.
And they were executive producers along with me. And I had to run a lot of stuff by them. And if you think it's weird trying to convince guys like Backish and Zaslav and all these other people that know nothing about storytelling,
right?
If you think that's hard, well, it's equally as hard sitting down in a boardroom with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen and explaining to them how you want the season to lay out, and they're just sitting there cracking their gum. They were good kids.
Paul F. Tompkins has a great joke about that, where he's just he says working when he was an adult, he was in his late 20s working at this hat store, and he would say to people he would say to customers, "You're not the boss of me. That other 16-year-old is."
Right, exactly. That's funny. But that's so funny. But so it was a challenging time, but Taylor was the guy, we both gravitated towards each other, being me an ex-comic and him still a comic.
Of course, yeah.
And so we spent a lot of time together and, just making jokes and laughing and watching him at the Comedy Store was a treat.
Oh, yeah.
He was very much he was the male Sandra Bernhard. Sandra Bernhard was the female Taylor Negron. They both were so off the cuff and irreverent and talked about Hollywood and people and streets, Melrose versus La Cienega and shopping for area rugs.
Yeah.
You don't want carpet, you want an area rug. Taylor, I would love to see what he would be doing if he were still around.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's funny about Taylor, and for any of those who don't know who Taylor Negron is through stand-up comedy, I'm trying to think of some other things that people might know him from. Angels in the Outfield. He was in So Little Time. He was in
Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh my God. Yeah, absolutely. You've definitely seen Taylor before, is what I'm trying to say. And something that I love about Taylor is, and I'm sure you can attest to this, he can make something that on the page does not seem funny so funny by the way that he reads it.
Absolutely. And that's what I talk about all the time too, with film and TV, whereas, there's a lot of writers that believe the word is everything.
Yeah.
And it does start with us. Without us, crafting character and story and all that, there's nothing.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, it really is the casting gods must be looking down on you.
Yeah.
And the right people have to walk into your office and get cast in that role, and the easy example is to say Friends, because Friends is generational, much like Boy Meets World, and that it still is watched and revered today. But can you imagine if there was no David Schwimmer, no Courtney Cox, no Jen Aniston, no Lisa Kudrow, no Matt LeBlanc, and no Matt Perry?
Yeah, or no Wilfred L, or no Bill Daniels, or no...
Exactly.
Yeah,
right. 100%. So
yeah,
the casting gods really have to come and join the writing, and it's all it just doesn't work on its own.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, one thing that I was thinking, just Taylor alone, like he can make something like I'm saving them for later seem hilarious. Like there's this scene in Angels in the Outfield where they accidentally put nachos in his chair and he sits on them. And they're like, "Where are the nachos?" And he's just like, "I'm saving them for later." Like, it's just the way that he says it in this creepy, like, but kind of like,
Robin was very much like
oh
that.
my God,
Robin could make
yeah.
almost anything work.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Pardon the interruption, besties. I just wanted to talk about today's sponsor, Magic Mind. I'm so excited that Magic Mind is supporting Childlike at Best because I might come off as a very energetic person on this podcast, but I'm not perfect. Sometimes I need a little boost of energy. Sometimes I have brain fog. Sometimes it feels like a tiny little demon just farted in my head and I'm unable to think of anything because all I can think about is this metaphorical smell that's happening. I'm sure you can relate to this. In enters a productivity drink called Magic Mind. Magic Mind is a wonderful solution for mental energy, focus, brain fog, even helps you with your memory and have less stress and anxiety in your life. You know, I've noticed that drinking coffee makes me very jittery and it actually gives me more anxiety. But the thing that I've been doing lately is I've just been taking a shot of Magic Mind and it's actually been really good for helping me with my energy and my focus throughout the day because it has so many natural ingredients. It has matcha, which is kind of nature's extended release caffeine. It has ashwagandha in it and also lion's mane, and it actually tastes delicious too. Honestly, the most important thing is that it actually works. In fact, I got a case for the house, and ever since I've been taking it, other people in the house have been taking it as well. My sister's a teacher, and she is really on her energy drink game, and I told her about Magic Mind. Now she's just been taking Magic Mind and she swears by Magic Mind, which is pretty incredible. She's also somebody who has the palate of a 7-year-old in that she only likes flavors of mythological creatures as opposed to flavors that actually exist. Like she likes things that are unicorn sprinkle flavored and things like that. And she actually thinks that this tastes good. So that should really be saying something. I think that's probably the best endorsement that you could hear. And if that isn't enough for you, there's a lot of people that are talking about it. In fact, I learned about this product through Pete Holmes' podcast, You Made It Weird. A lot of you might have heard about Magic Mind through Joe Rogan or the Kardashians. I mean, everybody's talking about Magic Mind because Magic Mind actually works. So, here's how you can get the best productivity drink in the market in your own hands and in your brain. Go to magicmind.com/childlike to order your first case of Magic Mind and use promo code BESTIE to get 20% off of your order and 56% off of your monthly subscription. That's magicmind.com/childlike and use promo code BESTIE, BESTIE, to get 20% off of your order or 56% off of your monthly subscription. Thanks so much to Magic Mind for sponsoring this episode of Childlike at Best. On with the show. This kind of leads me, I mean, I wasn't really planning on talking about this, but like, I mean, every now and again, you know, they try to cancel Girl Meets World. Like, and it's like, for what? Well, you know what I mean?
I believe a lot of times it's for an episode I wrote.
Yeah, it is, actually.
The autism.
Yeah, it's
episode.
The autism episode. Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
so,
which is so...
You want to talk about that?
If you're okay with it, yeah.
Absolutely. You want to set it up?
Well, I mean, to my understanding, like, you know, the episode is about Farkle and how, you know, he has autism, and apparently my assumption is that people on Twitter who may have known someone who possibly knows the definition of autism are very upset about it, because it doesn't seem like people with autism have a problem with it at all, because that's... You know, I don't think you did anything wrong.
So to piggyback on it, what bothers me, and it's the same group of people that drag me in the show every 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
It's the same couple of hundred people, and they call me an ableist. They say I'm completely insensitive to people with autism, people with Asperger, people who struggle with that stuff. And they just are using social media to elevate themselves and their own voices and to come off as righteous and progressive and
of course
and all that stuff. And here's the truth. And I don't engage with them because you can't win. So
you don't feed the trolls. That's what I
don't
always
feed
say.
the trolls.
Yeah.
So to the listeners, I wrote that episode about a year after one of my sons was diagnosed with Asperger, being on the spectrum at about 17 years old. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to, as I started to understand it, I wanted to write an episode about Asperger.
Of course.
Number two, as far as inaccuracies, we had 3 experts that I had to deal with the entire time, from outline through script, through shooting, that were on set, that had to approve absolutely anything and everything that was clinical in nature. So anything that aired was accurate. Then the big thing that they didn't understand and dragged us for was they thought it was wrong of the friends to, when he first said that he may be on the spectrum and he may have Asperger, Riley, Maya, and Lucas were all like, no, you don't have it. You're not that. And he would give all these examples and they're like, no. And they're like, what kind of friends would do that? And I was trying to explain, the one time I did engage publicly, was that this was the story. We needed them to go from there to acceptance.
Yeah.
It's still a TV show.
Yeah.
We ended up where you want us to be, where the friends hugged them and said, you're who you are and we love you no matter what.
Right.
But if they did that on page 8, the show's over.
Yeah. It's the shortest show of all time. Shortest
show of all time. And there's no, positive messaging that, we can eventually get to by starting in the not right place. And so they didn't understand any of that. They didn't even obviously watch the whole show. Mm-hmm. And so it was very, and plus that episode was nominated for a WGA award, which I was very proud of. I've been nominated for 6 Emmys and won an Emmy, but that's my favorite nomination ever.
Yeah. Because my favorite is when you lost to Elmo, but
yes,
because I thought that was hilarious.
I believe, yes, all the greats have lost to Elmo at some point. I believe Meryl Streep once lost to Elmo. I believe everybody at one point. Yeah. Michael Douglas once lost to Elmo. Everybody at one point was lost
absolutely.
to Elmo.
Nicholson lost to Elmo back in '85.
Multiple losses to Elmo.
Yeah.
But so the thing is, it's still hurtful, especially when it's your own child.
Of course.
And he is the first to say, Pops, they're trolls. Don't
feed the trolls. Exactly.
Don't feed the trolls.
He knows.
But a lot of people on social media who have these strong opinions, they're so lost.
Yeah.
They don't understand anything. Like, I had somebody write to me. They were living in Indiana, and after watching that episode, they decided to move to LA, which I didn't understand because there are people on the spectrum in Indiana. So I didn't get that part of the show. Why? But anyway, that part of what she was saying to me, why it made her move to LA. But she now works with kids on the spectrum in special ed because of that episode.
That's amazing.
So to all the trolls, like, come on, here's a big, come on.
It's true.
Like, I'm out there positive messaging.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, man, like, I could speak for my generation here. The amount of people that went into teaching because of Mr. Feeney, being a lawyer because of Topanga, like, sure. I mean, so many crazy things. I mean, the amount of people that just, wrote a book with one sentence because of Eric,
Sure.
Like, I'm just making a joke.
No, I know. So here's the thing. So, I'm a guild member, as I know 33 years. And so we're on strike right now. And I picket almost every day, twice a day at different studios. And to kind of keep things fresh and fun for all the writers on the picket lines, because it is very difficult to be, marching for something that we know is correct that they don't want to give to us. But so different themes from shows pop up, and the writing staff and cast members will come. So we had a Boy Meets World picket about 2 weeks ago at Radford, which is one of the places where we filmed Boy Meets World. And Danielle Fishel Topanga was there, Will Friedle, Trina McGee, who played Angela, and Ryder Strong, who played Sean.
Yeah.
Along with a bunch of the writers, Jeff Sherman, Jeff Manel, Patty Carr, Laura Runnels, Barbie Adler now, Gary Miller. If I'm missing anybody, please, I apologize, to Allison Gibson. And so we had this big reunion. Now fans showed up dressed as Plays with Squirrels.
Oh yeah, of course.
People had picket signs that were personalized from Boy Meets World. So there'd be a sign like "Pay up, baboon."
Yeah.
But beyond that, where I'm going with this story is, I had 3, maybe 4 young writers come up to me, introduce themselves, call me Mr. Blutman, which I hate. I said it's Mark, but thanks for being respectful. And they said, "You're a big reason why I'm in LA pursuing writing."
Hell yeah, man.
And so, to write film and TV in this business is a huge accomplishment. To have written on shows that long after I'm gone will still be viewed and talked about because their legacy shows is overwhelming, man.
Yeah. It's you're absolutely right in that you have done such legacy shows, which is so cool, man. Like, I mean, I said this on the first episode, but I'll repeat it just because you might have forgotten.
I'm
but
sure I
the
did.
when I was on my first sitcom, they asked me on the second season to become a writer, and I was like, I've never done this before, and they were like, hey, just we'll teach you how to do it, and then we'll teach you how to submit packets, for other shows and things like that. And they taught me, how to write a spec script. And the first spec script I ever wrote was a Girl Meets World spec script. It was the first script I ever wrote. And
it's amazing.
Yeah. And so just to say, that, and not to mention, this was all before I met you. I wrote a Girl Meets World spec script, and I auditioned to be on Ghostwriter. So, I had been in your orbit before we actually knew each other.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's funny, Mike. I don't take any of it for granted, because, like, if people, like, I'm not on camera, so I'm not Danielle, and I'm not Will or Ryder or Bill Daniels. But if somebody wants to take 5 minutes out of their day and talk to me for 5 minutes, of course I'm willing to take the 5 minutes, because, oh my gosh, I'm not on camera like the rest of them, and you still want to talk to me?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I want to be a writer. I want to talk to you. I want to hear your journey. I want to pick your brain. And so in a lot of ways, am I going to sell out a Comic-Con like the cast? Of course not. But I still have something 25 years later, 25 years after Boy Meets World, I still have something of value to bring to a bunch of strangers that want to be like me.
Yeah, you have so much to offer, man. I mean, I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about Boy Meets World, just for the fans, and also I can talk later seasons because Pod Meets World can't do that yet. So, but yeah, so, I mean, it's wild because This is how much of a fan I am, dude. I'm just letting you know I'm such a nerd, and I can't even like look at the camera or look at your screen right now as I tell you this story because I'm so embarrassed. I in my relationship, I was the first person to say I love you, much like Corey, to Topanga the first time, and
I wrote that episode.
Yeah, and my girl, I'm so happy that you wrote it because
breaking up is really, really hard to do. What I meant to say. It's called What I Meant to Say.
Yeah, what I meant to say. Exactly. Yeah. And what's it called? When she said I love you for the first time, I said I always knew you did. Like without even hesitation, dude. Like without even hesitation, I said I always knew you did. Like
so but here's the deal. Let's stop for a minute.
Yeah.
Okay. And so for those who don't know, Mike is I always knew you did as a line from the show, from the episode.
Yeah, Corey literally says that to Topanga when she says I love you for the first time.
How many people did a show, wrote something, and 30 years later it's being talked about like we're doing right now? That's what's so freaking overwhelming to me.
Yeah.
And somebody said to me recently, gosh, you're so cool and you help so many young writers and you're so like, you're not jaded at all.
Yeah.
And I just thought, how can I be? Like, how can I be jaded when 30 years later I'm able to sit here with you and you're geeking out about the first time your girl said, I love you back. You said you quoted Boy Meets World. I mean, that's pretty darn cool. How can I be jaded about that?
Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, it has a lot of staying power in my heart, like, I mean, and so much so that like, like I said, it's like without hesitation, like it was just exactly what happened, and like that's
now,
how much.
Does she think that was your line, or does she know now that you took it from TV?
No, she knows. I'm not one of those guys. I'm not one of those guys.
It'd be great if she didn't know and then she watches this podcast.
That was all me. No, really what happened was I always knew you did. We had a moment and I said, that was from Boy Meets World, by the way.
That's so funny.
And then we laughed because we love each other like that. So
that's awesome. I love that story, man. You're making my day with that.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing because like I found someone that I can truly laugh with, and like that's the most important thing. I mean, my best friend said, he goes, the thing that you really got to look for in a relationship when you find someone that you're really interested in is do you like their smile? Do you like their laugh? And do you like their eyes? Because those are the things that are never going to change.
That's right. That's great.
That's really what you got to look for.
That's it.
And that's I ever since he told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I have to look for. So yeah, if any advice, for the audience that's listening to the Besties, that's about the only relationship advice I have is that.
It's perfect. You don't need much more than that, Mike.
Yeah. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about a few episodes. We talked about did we talk about Thrilla and Phila? No, we didn't. We talked about gosh, what's the episode name? The one with Vader.
400-pound men and Sweet 16s or something. Yeah, I forget what it was called. 400-pound something.
That was officially your writing credit, right? That's your episode.
Thrilla and Phila was.
Okay.
The other one, I think Matt Nelson, the late Matt Nelson, dear friend who we lost last December.
Yeah.
He got the credit on that, but that was pretty much my episode.
Sure.
Even though I didn't take the written by.
All that stuff, by the way, to the audience is all semantics. Like it's,
exactly.
Were you still on the show when Linda Cardellini was on as a guest star? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have to ask you. Yeah. I have to ask you as a fan, and also other fans are going to want to know, why would you bring someone like Lauren into Corey's life and screw up their relationship like that? Because to me personally, when I saw Lauren, when one of the great things about the writing of that show is it really made me feel like Corey, because I was like, man, this girl is awesome. And it really makes you feel like Topanga who for a second, you know?
Sure.
And then you see Topanga again and you're like, uh-oh, like this isn't good. And then, yeah, so I want to commend you, but also like, I also have to say, why would you? Just because like the Corey and Topanga relationship is so perfect, you know?
Sacred. It's sacred. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, part of our job, although we were an episodic sitcom, there still was a serialization to the show. Mm-hmm. You know, there was an ongoing story. And it's like any good storytelling, whether on TV or in film or in a book, or you want to get a reaction from your audience. Mm-hmm. And you want to have their emotions, you know, being disrupted.
Yeah.
And Corey and Topanga breaking up on and off was a big part of the show.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
I often talk to people and they're like, gosh, nowadays the streamers, they want, when you go into pitch, they want 3-4 seasons all mapped out and they want to know every story. And I'm like, that's a flaw. Back when we were doing 24 episodes, you know, we never had to map it out because you don't know what's going to happen because the characters and audiences really lead you to new story areas.
Yeah.
And I would always make the joke. We'd go in for the beginning of season meeting with Disney and ABC. And they're like, so what are the plans this year, boys? And we're like, well, we thought we'd break up Corey and Topanga and get them back together. Sounds good. Go right. I mean, we would do that all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of, you know, reaction-wise, we knew it'd be huge. But beyond that, Michael Jacobs, the creator of the show, always, once Danielle joined the show and once the chemistry became apparent, Michael believes in love at first sight, and he believes that, you know, love can override absolutely anything, and love is the end all be all, et cetera, et cetera. And he wanted to marry them at 18, 19 years old, like they did. They did get married at that age. Some of us didn't want to because we didn't think that was real or the right message, but it's his show and he was going to win out. So along the road, we thought that we had to at least once put a real bump in the road for their relationship, not a funny story with a funny girl and a funny, you know, tropey kind of, you know, slip or attraction or whatever, you know, but something that was meaningful. Yeah. And so we had, you know, invested in creating the Lauren character played by Linda Cardellini, and boy, she got hate mail about being the one to break up Corey and Topanga. Sure, boy, did she ever. But we wanted to create a character that really was a threat, not that she was better or worse than Topanga. Right. It wasn't about that.
Yeah.
It was that she wasn't Topanga, but she was fantastic.
Right. And that's how I felt as an audience member, to be
right.
fair.
And so that was basically all we wanted to do is just create the complications. And then Topanga went off and she had a kiss with a guy a couple episodes later. And we just wanted them to be able to circle back to each other stronger than before. And if they never experienced the pain of seeing each other attracted to someone else, then ostensibly it maybe would happen 2 years into the marriage, 5 years into the marriage.
Right.
It would happen inevitably because it just happens.
Right.
So we felt, let's get it out of the way before.
That's actually extremely smart. I mean, and to be fair, I think everyone in the cast has been pretty vocal that none of them kind of approve of the marriage at that young. However, for Corey and Topanga, it works, but not for them personally.
Yeah.
You know, which I completely understand too. Like, I wouldn't be that guy, but for Corey and Topanga, I get it. You know what I mean?
And at the end of the day, Mike, at the end of the day, they're fictional characters.
Of course, yeah, but let's just say they were real people. You know what I mean?
Right, but
it's like,
yeah,
it would be like, well, yeah, I get it. Like they've loved each other since they were kids, and they had like it just makes
Although
sense.
there were apparently 2 or 3 different origin stories.
Yeah, 2 or 3 different
origin stories. Did they meet on the
stories?
monkey bars? Did they meet?
Like, yeah. You know, two or 3 different dads. I mean, it's fine. You know?
She had 3 dads, but that
was it 2 moms or 1 mom?
I think 2 moms.
I think it was 2 moms.
I think Annette O'Toole was one of the moms.
Yeah.
The dads, I know 2 of them, Peter Tork and
from
Michael
the Monkees,
McKean.
right?
Yeah, from the Monkees, and Michael McKean, and I forget the third guy's name. But you know, I was talking to somebody recently, and one of the things that made the show so different and amazing, and part of its you know, appeal to, you know, cross generations, was we really had guest stars on from all these different worlds. I mean, we had a young Adam Scott, but then we had Robert Goulet and Yasmin Bleeth, and we had like, we just, you know, Robin Leach came on, and you know, we just had, it really was, you know, we had Paul Gleason, who played the principal in Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
You know, he played the dean at Pembroke. And of course, we had Bill Daniels' wife, Bonnie Bartlett, on. We had something for everyone. You know, Pat Morita. We had the Monkees.
Yeah.
Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick.
Yeah, from Cheap Trick. Yeah. 4 guitars, 1 sound.
That's it.
But yeah.
You got to get that t-shirt.
Yeah. And, but it's so true that like, it's just like, who would listen to a band that's just 4 guitar players? But I
wrote that one too, actually.
Yeah. That is one of the,
yeah.
That is one of my favorites, is Band on the Run. It's so funny. I love that episode, just because like every kid does have that dream where they're like, at least I had that dream of like, yeah, like I write songs, and then, you know, because it impresses a girl, and they're like, why don't you play prom or whatever?
Well, I mean, like,
sure.
The concept of just carrying around empty guitar cases with their lunch in it to meet girls, I think is super funny.
Yeah,
and
I did something very similar. I didn't. I I did that whenever I want to go to a show, like a local show, and I didn't have money for a ticket, I would just walk in with a guitar case and pretend like I was in the band.
There you go.
Just let me in.
The power of the guitar case. Absolutely. I'm with the band.
So it does work. It does work.
Yeah. I think that was a line in the show. One of the girls, Topanga said to a girl, "Who are you?" And she goes,
"Yeah,
I'm with the band."
Yeah, that's such a funny line. That, who are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, their band is awesome. Like, they haven't heard them play a note. Like, they're so good.
They're so good. The Exits. They were the Exits.
The Exits. Oh my gosh. I wanted to talk about this episode because this is the quintessential episode that I like to talk about with people that are like, man, I just can't deal with shows with canned laughter. And I'm like, canned laughter? Those people are real. And like, sure, there are shows with canned laughter. Like, there's, you know, How I Met Your Mother is canned laughter, you know, things like that. But I'm like, those people are real. And you can tell in quite a few Boy Meets World episodes that it is a real audience.
Absolutely.
And the thing that I always say is, watch the episode called It's a Long Walk Home from Pittsburgh, where Topanga comes back and Corey opens the door, and tell me that that's a fake audience. that is one of the you can hear people backflipping in there in the crowd.
It was one of the longest audience sound breaks I've ever seen on TV.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
Soaking wet from her walk in the rain.
Dude, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's such a good scene. It's so well done and so well written. And then
I hate to be this guy, but I don't mind.
No. That's the whole reason.
I was running the show then. Michael was off doing other shows, and those were, you know, the years of Sean and Angela, Corey and Topanga, the Pittsburgh Long Walk to Pittsburgh Part 1 and 2 was great. It was just amazing, iconic, you know, family sitcom. You know, I think on par with like Family Ties.
I agree.
I completely agree.
Yeah, and in fact, the beauty of those two episodes is it it truly is like a you know this is I'm really this is going to blow your head up a lot, but I'm telling you it's just how it is as a fan of the show. It's very much like Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi in a lot of ways because like it ends with yeah, they're coming back, don't worry about it. Like Sean just like trying to console Corey, like she's coming right back, dude. It's not gonna happen. Like it doesn't happen like this on TV. And then she's like, oh crap, like maybe we don't live in TV, and it's like such a real moment. And then that scene in part 2 where she comes back, and then I think the cherry on top is the aunt being the the actress who played Juliet in Romeo and Juliet.
The context of the kind of detail and Easter egg, discovery that we went with in casting. Again, like that stuff's pretty cool to have a Romeo and Juliet story, but then to cast the original Juliet. Who does that?
How cool is that? I love that.
I mean, and so that's, and that's credit to, the creator, Michael Jacobs, in that, we followed his lead in that we always talked about honoring the show, always. And so we all deeply cared about the show, while we were there. And certainly, I left for reasons which I'm, happy to share, but, I left towards the end of year 5 to go do a show with Tom Selleck called The Closer. But while we were there, and now nostalgically looking back, when we talk, at least when I do, I have so much love for I say kids, but Danielle and Will and Ryder and Trina, and they're hardly kids anymore.
Yeah.
The thing we posted when we had the Boy Meets World picket of Bill Daniels, myself, and David Kendall, who ran the show for Michael before me, we went to Bill Daniels' house the Monday of that week, and David and I got to spend time with him. He's 96. We spent time with him and his wife, Bonnie, and he recorded that for us.
That's so awesome.
To be able to do that, that we've all been a part of something that is so meaningful to not only your generation, but younger than you.
Of course.
Boy Meets World has never, ever not been available to watch.
Yeah.
Whether it was ABC syndication and then ABC Family, MTV2, Disney Channel, wherever now, streaming.
And DVDs.
DVDs, of course, but it's always, always, always been available. Always.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's pretty amazing.
Man. I mean, it's a wonderful legacy. I mean, and speaking of legacy, I mean, I wanted to talk about this because we haven't talked about like your directorial stuff. You directed a movie called Spy School, which is a really fun movie. You had and Ryder came back for it, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, we talked about that on the picket line the other day.
Yeah, and
me and him, yeah.
Yeah, you believe the bad guy is Brian Posehn, which is a really funny comedian
who I ran into on the picket line too.
I'm sure,
we talked about the movie.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
Brian's great. Brian's amazing.
I love Brian. I don't know him personally, but
one of a kind. He's just one of a kind.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Again, I don't know any of these people personally. Would love to have them on the show, but it is what it is. But I was just wondering, just because I'm curious, and my favorite movie is Back to the Future. What was it like working with Leah Thompson?
So it was amazing. So I'm a huge fan of Leah's.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned Back to the Future and Caroline in the City. I think it ran for many, many years.
Yeah.
And so being on set with her was great. And she was so collaborative and just so easy to work with. I'm a huge John Hughes fan.
Same.
I mean, I've talked about it publicly a lot, how he inspired a lot of the good coming of age stuff that I aspire to write at his
the Brat
level.
Pack, man. It was like the best movies.
Yeah, I mean, Breakfast Club. And anyway, there's a scene in the movie and bits of the movie. There's a little section that's kind of an homage to Some Kind of Wonderful.
Right.
And Leah was in Some Kind of Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so, she came to me on set when we were about to film that scene, and she just smiled at me and said, "So you were a fan of Some Kind of Wonderful?" And I went, "Yeah." She goes, "This is a really nice homage to us, and thank you."
Yeah.
So we shared that, and, her having been in a John Hughes film. That was her, Mary Stuart Masterson, I believe. It was a terrific actor who I don't think she does it anymore. I'm not sure. I haven't seen her in a long time, but she was amazing. And I believe Eric Stoltz.
Yeah, Eric Stoltz
was the guy in it. Some Kind of Wonderful.
Yeah.
It was delightful, and we still talk. She's directing a lot now. She's directed some Picards. I have a show, a 1-hour YA drama called Grip that's adapted from the book of the same name. That's, I want Leah to direct it. She read it and loves it and would like to direct it. And I know she would crush it. And I'm trying to make it happen with her as the director.
If you need actors, you got me. If you need,
I will find something for you, Valdes, at some point.
If you ever get 10 wishes back, I would be happy to audition for 10 wishes.
That's my favorite.
Dude, I mean, by the way, it's just an incentive for people to listen to the first episode. Mark talked about his movie that he sold. It was to 20th Century, right? You sold it to 20th Century
Fox in 1990, I guess, 91.
It's such a cool premise for a movie. Yeah,
it is. It's Howie and I talked about it. It's Howie Mandel is one of the producers on it. And we've talked about maybe resurrecting it and maybe flipping it, maybe doing it with a female lead, and all the wishes happening to her. And she, is a romantic at heart. Maybe one of her wishes is a knight on a white horse shows up to sweep her off her feet. Now she's got, wherever she lives in St. Louis, Missouri, there's a guy coming downtown on a horse looking for her. We can have a lot of fun with the wishes from a female point of view, but the spine of the story still being the same.
Right.
But I love 10 wishes.
You mentioned Howie. I love Howie so much, and Howie is one of those guys that I didn't realize it until I was like 7 years into doing comedy, where I was like, wow, I'm kind of doing Howie Mandel because he has that childlike wonder, in his stand-up so much. And I feel like we would get along just based on that, because like we have that, like, that childlike heart, still.
Absolutely.
And he's such a pure soul. At least he seems like it,
He has a podcast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What's it called?
It's called? Howie Mandel Does Stuff, I believe. Right? Yeah.
I'm wearing his T-shirt.
Yeah.
This is his T-shirt. So.
Yeah, I love Howie. Yeah, he's so cool.
We couldn't not talk about it, and I just ignore that I'm wearing the T-shirt.
Yeah, you're wearing the stuffed T-shirt. Yeah. In fact, one of. If you were to say, Mike, you have the keys to the kingdom, you can do whatever you want in Hollywood, that kind of thing, it would probably be something similar to what he did with Bobby's World, because like Bobby's World is like such a great show, like, and I related to it so much when I was a kid, because like, he was Bobby's around my age when it came out, and he looked a lot like me.
Bobby Generic.
Yeah, Bobby Generic, yeah, and yeah, like he looked a lot like me when I was a kid, and like stuff like that, and I just had a really big imagination, just like that, like he, kind of like I'll never forget it. Like there was he was selling chocolates in one episode, and there his dad, who's also played by Howie Mandel, says you should go upstairs and work on your pitch. And then you just hear glass shattering, and he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "I was working on my pitch."
That's great. That's great.
It's
That's
so
great.
cute. Like, I mean, it was like the funniest. I used to love that show.
I thought it was a great show. I thought it was an amazing, amazing, amazing show. What's amazing about Howie is that there are so many aspects to his career, and audiences don't know them all.
Yeah.
You're like, so right. There's so many people that know him from America's Got Talent.
Mm-hmm.
Have no idea he does stand-up. There's so many people that know him from stand-up, has no idea that back in the day, he was on one of the top 1-hour medical dramas in television history, St. Elsewhere.
Yeah.
Playing Dr. Fiscus. And, he did a bunch of movies and
Deal or No Deal
with Fred Savage. Then he had Deal or No Deal, which is in casinos. It's a slot machine.
It sure is.
Howie, we've been friends for over 40 years now, and I'm still the way I was back in the day when I was just starting out and around him. I'm still in awe of him and his wife Terry as people, and love them dearly and blessed that they've been part of my journey in this business.
So much so. Yeah. I know that first of all, I want to thank you so much for doing this show. Where I'm wrapping up just a little bit here, but before I wrap up, I want to talk about the writer's strike, and I want to let our audience know what's happening, because this is very important. We're in a kind of a scary time right now when it comes to writing, and it even might start affecting our actors as well. Because there's a possibility that even SAG is going to start going on strike because we are with our writers, so much, and we feel like we need them. So I would like to just let our audience know about what's going on and how they can help and if they can help and, that kind of thing.
Great. I appreciate that. It's really important that I share with people as much as I can. Mm-hmm. As writers, we have what's called an MBA, a minimum basic agreement, and we have that with the studios, otherwise known as AMPTP, Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers. And every 3 years, it expires and we need to negotiate a new deal. And generally, we avoid strikes. The last one we had, I believe, was in 2007. Mm-hmm. And that lasted about 100 days. But what makes this one critical, different, is that although we're fighting for transparency from the streamers in terms of viewership and fair residuals, and they also want to reduce the size of writers' rooms and the length of writers' rooms, and I will get into that, so please let's circle back.
Yeah.
But all that stuff is negotiable to me. What is a non-starter and why we will not stop until we get what we want, which is protection of the occupation of being a writer. The aforementioned AMPTP don't believe we're necessary. Mm-hmm. They believe we're disposable. They don't value or respect us as artists. And they do everything they can to slowly increase their profitability by minimizing their costs in all areas, including the writing. So these mini rooms that I just mentioned, generally before, a staff would get hired, anywhere from 12 to 18 writers, and they would be on the entire production. Writers would be on set for multicam shows. For single cam shows, generally, if you wrote the episode, you'd be on set. Now, why is this important? Well, creatively, it's important to have as many people contributing to the recipe, to the stew that's being cooked to make the episode as good as it can be. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, older writers like myself who run shows, we have a responsibility to train, to mentor, to teach the next generation of writers all those aspects of production, casting, editing, sweetening, music, all that stuff that is so essential to making a TV show great as a finished product. We teach them, and eventually they move up the ranks, and now they're in a position to run their own show because they've learned all the aspects. So when I started, I was a first-time writer, and I had a legend named Bernie Ornstein, who used to run shows like Sanford and Son and The Monkees and That Girl, all these classics. And he taught me all these aspects of production. So within 5 years, I was running a network show for ABC. The streamers with these mini rooms, what they're doing is there's maybe 4 to 6 writers and the showrunner. They're asked to write maybe 6 scripts. See, back in the day, we would shoot a pilot. The pilot would get tested in front of audiences. They'd rank them, rate them, which characters they liked, which they didn't. And then networks would decide which shows to pick up, then bring them to New York to the upfronts in front of the advertisers, reveal them as being on the schedule. So these guys went, wait, why would we pay millions of dollars for a bunch of pilots we're not going to ever air? Let's just order scripts. So they would like a show, say to a showrunner, I really like the pilot you wrote. We're interested in picking up the show. Put a mini room together of 4 to 6 writers, write 4 episodes, 5 episodes, 6 episodes, whatever, and then we'll make a decision. So the room, a small room now, gets together, does that. They write the scripts, break the stories, create the world, hand it in. Apple goes, that's fantastic. We're going to go into production. The showrunner's fantastic. Great. Thank you. We're terminating all the lower level writers. Wait, what? We don't need them anymore. Well, who's going to cover the set? You are, and you're one upper level co-executive producer. But that's a lot. I got to go to sweetening. I'll be in casting. I'm in editing. I got to be on set. There's a lot of stuff. I need the support. You don't need them. So now all these young writers worked for 10 weeks, were not on set, are gaining no experience, are not being taught how to produce television. So ostensibly what's happening, and we didn't see it at first, this was the first step in the streamers going, we don't need writers. Look, we got rid of them all. There were no writers. What's the next step? AI, artificial intelligence. Okay. They are developing artificial intelligence to do our job, to write scripts. Now, right now, the ones that are out there like ChatGPT, it's horrible. Mm-hmm. It's horrible because it doesn't give you anything original. All ChatGPT does is spit back information that it's already been fed and absorbed. So basically, there's also copyright infringement happening. What they want is they want the scripts written by AI instead of paying a writer $30,000 to write a script. And then they'll hire 1 or 2 upper level writers to polish. So they really want a world where we're replaced. Now, you know, and I know, AI has no heart.
Of course, yeah.
AI has no ability to tell original stories. As I said to somebody recently, AI has never lived with my mother. So good luck with that story.
Yeah.
There's another podcast. There's a podcast called Strike Talk. With Billy Ray and Todd Garner. Billy Ray wrote Captain Phillips, among just an incredible body of work. Todd Garner's a producer. And Billy Ray, in the last episode, did an interview with AI.
Oh, wow.
It's chilling.
Yeah.
So what we're really doing, so I'm 62, almost 63. I've had an incredible career. I've done over 350 episodes of TV, tons of pilots, movies, all that. When I retire, I have a nice pension. I have health insurance. I've had my whole career. I'm really, really blessed. The next generation of writers, not only are they going to have a more difficult time finding work, but how are they going to build a pension for themselves so when they hit 65, they can retire comfortably?
Right.
How are they going to have health insurance every year? These streamers have made billions upon billions upon billions of dollars off of our words, off of our stories, and they don't want to share in their wealth that they've accumulated off of us.
Right.
And we will not have it, because there are painters, there are lyricists, there are poets, there are playwrights, there are novelists. We're all part of the artist community. Well, so are we. We happen to be film and TV writers, but we are artists. And we want to continue to write and produce thought-provoking material that gets audiences feeling and talking. Like we talked about Boy Meets World. They don't want that anymore. That's why there's so much IP, so much superhero stuff, so much reboots, all that. First of all, it's easier for AI to write. AI can write Fast and Furious 15.
Of course. A 5-year-old can write Fast and
They
Furious.
also they don't want their audiences feeling. They don't want their audiences discussing.
Yeah.
They don't want their audience really viewing original material. This guy Zaslav, he just had to come to Jesus, as I tweeted, with Spielberg, Scorsese, and Anderson, because he got rid of all the higher ups of Turner Classic Movies.
Oh wow!
And these guys were not going to have it.
Of course.
And he just did that this week. He's the same dolt who got booed off the stage at Boston University when he gave a commencement speech. All you can hear was "Pay your writers, pay your writers." If they're not going to value us as artists, they are going to be without us.
Yeah.
And the longer they are without us, they have shareholders. And the shareholders are going to go, we see this downward trend of our stocks. What's up, Mr. Zaslav? And so right now, as you said, SAG-AFTRA is at the negotiating table. Their deal expires a week from tomorrow, June 30th.
Yep.
They'll either strike or have a new deal. If they make a new deal, then they'll return to us. By the way, AMPTP, the body of the studios and streamers, they can negotiate with SAG-AFTRA at the same time as they could sit down and negotiate with us. They choose not to.
Right.
They want us to keep being out there out of work and sweating, which we're not going to do. We had a rally yesterday with over 4,000 people at Pan Pacific Park. We have the backing of the Teamsters. So finally, first of all, I appreciate you giving me the forum to talk about the strike.
Of course.
I know I babbled a long time, and I will answer any specific question, but
it's
here's
not
the most
babbling.
important.
This is very important. It's not babbling at all.
Right. So here's the most important point. It's an existential crisis. It is a world crisis. We're only one of the first to dig our feet in the sand and say, we're ready, we're here to fight, because we're not going to let AI replace human writers who have the ability to connect on a level with audiences and make them feel, make them cry, make them laugh. Yeah. We're not going to let you. Now, we're only the first fight. AI is creeping into every line of work. We know, we call now, we deal with bots all day long. We see bots showing up on our timelines. My brother's in the restaurant business. I started trying to explain the strike to him, and he said, Mark, I get it.
Yeah.
They're developing an arm, a mechanical AI arm to flip burgers.
Mm-hmm.
So now you take away that job from kids trying to pay their way through school, help their parents, college, whatever. Adults who can't get high-paying jobs can only get a job in a restaurant, on a grill. Now they're going to be replaced. Truck drivers are going to be replaced by, AI
Drones or
driverless
whatever.
trucks. This is where we're going.
Yeah.
If it's this bad now, what's going to be like in 25 years?
Yeah.
Right.
We're gonna be in Wall-E. Like we're gonna
exactly.
Yeah.
So
I mean, and look at it this way. I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard many metaphors like this, but this is probably the best metaphor I can give for my listeners. Is like, it's like this is kind of like calling Comcast, and the whole time you're just like, I want to talk to a person. Can I talk to a person? Can I please talk to a person? Can I talk to a person? Because that that you are not going to get anywhere with an automated robot. You need to talk to a person in order for it to happen. And that's the same exact thing that's happening here. Like,
and every year, there are less and less people
to
talk to.
Yeah. And
it's a world crisis, and we're just at the forefront. We're just the writers who are a powerful union, who have the support of the Teamsters. Lindsay Doherty runs Teamsters 399. They will not cross any picket line. We're shutting down productions left and right. But this fight we're having is for workers all over the world.
In fact, before we were recording, I was hearing from someone on another podcast, Nick Weiger, actually from Doughboys. He was saying that if the companies would actually succumb to what the writers are asking for, they would be losing 4% of their income. And then Mark actually corrected me and said it's actually 2%.
It's 2% of their profits.
Which is nothing.
It's nothing.
Is nothing. I mean, and the writers are literally the reason why they get money at all. Like, because writers, then it's a trickle down effect. Like, the writers are then the reason why the acting is good, like all that stuff. Like, I, as an actor, cannot do anything without a good writer,
100%. Like, the big thing, Mike, the big thing for me is when I say back in the day, I'm only going, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, before the influx of streamers, etc. The guys and girls who ran the studios back in the day loved making film and television. Mm-hmm. They were smitten as kids. They were affected by great works of art, and they wanted to get in the business and contribute creatively to the world. Bob Evans, who ran Paramount, loved the magic of filmmaking, made The Godfather, Chinatown, Love Story.
Yeah.
These guys, they don't care about the business, the creative part of the business. They care about the dollars and cents, gobble up companies, go into debt, cut a bunch of salaries, cut a bunch of jobs, squeeze the writers, get rid of the writers, increase profitability. And, that's all they care about. They could care less what's on the screen. They don't even listen to their audience. My biggest message as we wrap up is they don't give a care in the world about their audience. Yeah. They don't care what their audience wants to watch. They don't care if their audience loves the show. If financially it makes sense for them to cancel it, they'll pull it. They don't research the shows. They don't promote the shows. They do not create stars anymore. They want to make money. They'd be smart. Create a star, put them in a few movies. They don't even do that anymore.
Yeah. Everybody's doing it themselves. Yeah.
The show in the business is gone. Mm-hmm. It's just business.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And this is the most important part, is what can we do to help, Mark? Is there anything that we can do?
There's a fund called Entertainment Community Fund, mm-hmm. and it takes care of artists in need, both writers, pre-WGA people, support staff. Remember, there's a bunch of assistants and script coordinators and all that, and
PAs,
different crew people
stuff,
who are out of work. So I like that fund a lot. In fact, I auctioned off a Boy Meets World show jacket of mine.
Sure did.
We raised $350, and that's where it went.
It was in my size too. I was really bummed.
You didn't bid.
I know, but
So yeah, it's called the Entertainment Community Fund on Twitter. I believe it's at Life in the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in LA, come join us on the picket lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, definitely do that. And one thing that I can say, and this is helpful, if you don't have the finances to help or anything, just tweet about it or talk about it on Facebook. Just let people know that something's happening right now.
Like, I heard Mark Blutman explain details of the strike on Mike Valdes' podcast, and I got to tell you, this makes sense.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, they don't really care. They just want our $9.99 a month. They don't care. It's
100% true. Yeah, they don't care what you think. Exactly. Yeah. So just spread the word. If you don't have a financial, thing, like, just tell people about it. I mean, word of mouth is so important in this business, because it allows us to be heard, in a lot of ways. It allows the writers to be heard. Me as a comedian and as an actor, it allows other people to see my comedy, whatever that may be, so word of mouth is very, very important. And it's free. It just takes a couple of clicks and a couple of seconds of your time.
That's it. Cheapest investment. Cheapest investment.
It's the cheapest investment. So before I let you go, Mark, where can people find you online? And anything that you have to promote, please do so.
Right now, it's all about the strike for me. So I really, don't want to talk about the work.
Of course.
I'm on Twitter at Blutman Mark, Instagram at Mark Blutman. And if you're in LA and you're on the picket lines, please say hi to me. I would love to walk a couple of laps around the studio with you and talk about the strike, talk about writing, talk about why I'm out there, and reach out to me on social, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Mark is genuinely one of the not only kindest, but just one of the most genuine people that I know. And I tell you this all the time, but I just want to say it again. It's such an honor to be your friend, man. It's something that's just like, it's a pinch me moment, it's one of those things where it's very, I never would have thought, oh my gosh, I have this guy's phone number and I can email him about something and ask him about a writing question if I have one or whatever.
Absolutely. And it's mutual, Mike. It's absolutely 100 mutual.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. That means a lot to me. Real quick, besties, you can go to thekidfromup.com. That is my website. You can find everything you need to find on there. And you can find my Instagram at Mike Valdes. My TikTok is at official Mike Valdes. And if you want some Childlike Wonder merch, you can go to childlikewonder.co. There's some cool shirts there. There's a Viewmaster shirt, and there's a shirt with my face on it as a cartoon that says Mike Valdes, comedy's favorite cartoon. And if that's your kind of fancy, then tickle it. You know what I mean? But anyway, this has been really fun. Have a great week, besties, and don't lose your sense of childlike wonder. Pay your writers.